with that, I would invite Ginny Maier to go ahead and unmute and introduce yourself and tell us about the really interesting things you're doing with the iPad with your students.
Well, thanks, Kristen, and thanks for inviting me to present this. I'm Ginny Maier. I teach in the biology department, and I'm also the health professions advisor here on campus. And one of the classes that I teach and that I love to teach is plant biology lab. And one of the goals of that lab is to get the students to learn how to communicate scientific information or practice communicating scientific information to the general public. And we usually do some sort of event on campus or some sort of activity on campus. So we've done an escape room in the green room. We've done open houses in the green room in Skelny. We've done campus plant tours and hikes. And this year during COVID, we did a scavenger hunt. And this year we sort of did a modified scavenger hunt. And I wanted to use some of the features, some of the capabilities of the iPad while we did that. And there's some cool capabilities here. So I'm going to share my screen and show you what we did and the apps that we used to do those things. So sorry, give me a second here. Okay, so I did the iPad 2.0 training over the summer, and I learned about this program that I immediately told Katie that it made me not relevant anymore. But it's a really useful program. But I don't know, this particular app, I'm not sure how useful it is outside of sort of plant biology and biology in general. And that's the Seek app, which is in the middle of the, I guess I can use my pointer here, right? So it's in the, it's available on the App Store, and it's a really cool program in that it's, Kristen mentions that it helps you find poison ivy in her yard. It's very effective at identifying organisms in nature. So if you download this app, this is basically what it looks like when you open it up. There's this little photo camera icon that you can use to scan the environment for organisms. Of course, I'm in my office, so I had a photo, and I tried this on a photo and actually worked pretty well. But now that I've got this set up in my office, I don't know how I would do that for you. But I did want to highlight it. It's a very effective program. It's really accurate, identifying species, identifying organism down to the species level, often if there's enough information.
You can click on photos right at the bottom there. I think you can do it.
Okay.
See at the bottom right?
Yeah. So so if you have your iPad, oh, I guess I didn't, oh yeah, I didn't do it like this. Yeah, so this is a white pine, a picture of a white pine. What I tried was putting the photo on my desktop screen and then using the iPad to see if I could just identify it using like it was a live thing, and it did identify it to species. So that was pretty amazing just from the photo. So this is a really kind of remarkably accurate program in terms of identification. So I sent the students out to do that and to identify a variety of organisms on campus. And the idea was that we would create a map that was a campus plant tour. So I used my maps in Google to create a custom map. And each of these little points represents a different species. And the students then created a video for each of those points that we uploaded. So we uploaded the video to YouTube, and then we could share that link within Google Maps. So it's a really slick system where you can have these somewhat augmented reality type experiences on this kind of map. And that you've probably seen these before on Google Maps in general. So that was the goal, was to create this augmented map with videos associated with them. And we actually did that last fall as well. This fall, though, I used an augmented reality program called AR Makr, which is also an app that's available on, sorry, oh my goodness, falling apart. That's available at the App Store. So it's called AR Makr. And what that program does is create these somewhat interactive objects that you can interact with in the environment. Actually, rather than show you how it works, I'll show you the outcome of one that a student did. So I thought I had that open. Yeah. So this is, if I had followed through the links, if I had clicked through the links on the map there, I would have gotten his YouTube. Right. I had this all set up so that it would work great, but everything is timed out, I guess. So I'll go back to my map. No, I'll go back to YouTube Studio. I apologize for this being a little bumpy. I thought I had this all nicely set up.
No worries, Ginny. This is great so far. No worries at all.
So this is an example of the product that was produced by the AR Makr. So the students created a scene within the app, the AR app, and then they recorded themselves interacting with the scene. So my ideal was that it would be something like Pokemon Go, right? Where you go and you go out in the environment and you can find these objects by just sort of scanning your phone around. It doesn't work quite like that. So we had to create these videos that then you find on the map. But here's a great one showing how the system, or how this worked in practice. Oh, I don't know if I'm sharing sound. No, I'm not, am I?
In front of the Welcome Center, on the left-hand side, there is a member of the conifer family, a blue spruce, which can live to be 600 to 800 years old and grows 6 to 11 inches per season. If you're viewing this on the Fisher 8th generation iPad, that's about half to a whole screen's length per season. Its common name is the blue spruce, after its blue tinted foliage. But its scientific name is Picea pungens. The namesake blue tint to the needles is caused by a white pomerade substance that's deposited on the needles. Let's take a closer look at these needles. At a close-up view, the needles of the blue spruce are waxy, singular with 4 sides, and come to a point. This can be especially helpful in the winter to dislodge snow from the leaves and not weigh down the branches. The presence of needles instead of flat leaves also allows them to be drought resistant due to the little surface area for evapotranspiration. Because of their ability to thrive in the winter and their characteristics.
So I think you kind of get the point there. So the students were creating a variety of different or videos using this program and creating these interactive objects that they could then put in a real life scene and then interact with the iPad camera. So the program itself, AR Makr, allows you to create these scenes. And again, you're stuck with my office as the backdrop here. But students could place objects within these scenes and then record them. So replace this. This cute little panda, right? A red panda, which is coming to me for advice, obviously. So once it's placed in the environment in the scene that you've put it in, you can start to interact with it and kind of move around. This is a little bit choppy because of the connection through Zoom, but it's pretty smooth on the iPad. And the requirement for the assignment was for students to take 3 of these. They had to have the name and the scientific name in the presentation, and then have 3 additional images that they interacted with, either flat, as you saw in the one that I shared with you, or these 3D boxes that you could kind of move around. And then once they placed it and decided on their scene, they're given an option to record it. So over here on the left, on the right rather, is a movie, a video recording button. And then so the students were able to move around in the environment and interact with those objects. I initially had them recording audio at that time, but it was not, like, it's hard to do that outside. So they recorded the motions, and then they imported the video into iMovie and did a voiceover in iMovie. And it was a mixed bag, I would say, of outcomes of the results in terms of how the students did. And some of that was just learning how to use the technology, and some of it was maybe giving them a little too much freedom to decide what was credible information. It's often a problem. So I guess that I can say that was, I thought, a very, I'm going to stop broadcasting, a very useful app, and very fun to work with. The students, I think, had a good time. And I can see it working for a lot of different courses and in a lot of different settings. It was great for this tour. And the only thing that I would change about it is something that's not changeable, which is that, it wasn't something that you could just that you could share with someone and they could go out with their phone and find the same scene. Like you had to record the scene. But I think the amount of programming that's required to make it like Pokemon Go is way out of the range of what is possible with this. So happy to answer any questions about that, or I would be happy to talk to anyone who's interested in this in the future if you want to kind of practice with it.
I'll ask a question, if I may.
Sure.
Could you describe the learning curve for AR Maker? I mean, was it high? Did you have to or was it pretty intuitive? You just kind of said download and play.
It's not totally intuitive, but there aren't that many different things you can do with it. So what I did was I shared with them, there's a surprising lack of documentation. So I had found a YouTube video where somebody was doing basically what I just did, sort of a, somewhat unscripted, like, here's how it works. So I had them watch that. It was about 5 minutes, and that was before lab. And then when they got to lab, we all tried it like in the lab together. So to sort of see how it would work and to try the different capabilities. So they can animate things, like things can swirl around. You can add little cartoon characters if you want. We didn't quite get into like all of the different things that you could do, because I really wanted them to focus on transmitting the scientific information rather than messing around with the technology. But everyone was able to do it within 20 minutes. Everybody was able to create some sort of scene. The other technical challenge was that you have to move the iPad around to find a flat surface to place your objects on. And that's really easy to do inside. It's not as easy to do outside, but everybody was able to do it. It just was sometimes a lot of kind of, where are we going to go? Like, how are we going to get this to recognize the flat surface? But once it had a place, once it had a location, you could put objects there and you could raise them above the surface. So that was cool too. And we had students who would like stand next to them and, pretend to hold them while they were talking. And that was pretty neat. So I think it was fun. I never actually had, the idea was that I would release this to the campus so that, here you can follow this map. But there was enough sort of, I wasn't proud of it, like all of the work. And I didn't want to embarrass some of the students who clearly didn't do quite as much. But I also didn't want to just say, well, I took a selected number. So I ended up not releasing it as something that everybody on campus has access to. But I learned a lot about how to do it for the next time we try it. So.
Katie, you have a
So
question?
I have a quick question with especially the one you showed us where it showed the name of the tree, right? And then the scientific name of the tree. Is that something the students added through AR Maker, or did they add that through iMovie as post-production on the movie?
That was through AR Maker. So
okay,
you
so
can,
that was a flat object instead of the box.
right. So in AR Maker, you can draw something and you can then turn it into a box. You could turn it into other shapes too, but all those other shapes distort the image. So the box was really the only one that was useful. So that's what they did was you could write it in AR Maker. You could also create like a Notability. I had some students who wrote the scientific name in Notability, made that into a JPEG, and then imported it as a photo into the AR Maker, the way I did with that panda. So I think it wasn't too hard to figure out how to do those things. And again, I'd be happy to walk through it with anyone who was interested. It's pretty fun.
I think that's what I'm really most impressed with is the amount of technologies that you provided to the students and the way they all integrated together, right? From just identifying the species up front with the Seek to actually getting those into Google Maps and identifying the locations and mapping that out, getting the videos connected with the map, getting the AR videos then as part of the, and even just adding the music into the video. I mean, there's so many small tasks there that are not easy to do, but it's really great to see students generate all of those pieces together into this final product. So yeah, I'm super impressed. That's awesome.
So full disclosure, I had to upload the videos to the map. So there was no easy way to have the students, like they all had to be in one YouTube channel. So getting the students, I had to put them all in my YouTube channel and then connect them to that map. There may be is a way to have them each do it individually, but it just seemed way too messy. It was easier for them to just give me the video, I'll upload it to my YouTube channel and we'll put it on the map. So that was the only part that I had to do all the work.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, they dropped the pins on the map. I made the map and they dropped the pins and they identified what the plant was in there. And
yeah,
it was pretty cool.
It's very cool.
Jenny, I would just add that I loved the video and the student talking, and now let's take a closer look. And I found myself going toward the right, like following along in this video, and they did a good job. That was really fun. And then they talked about with the scientific name, it's just fun to hear the way that they're talking about their work in, a way that maybe we don't hear students talk like that in normal lab, right? Regular old, we're in lab, but to do this fun creative project, they were getting a little more, they were into it.
Yeah.
And
I did tell them to try to channel like David Attenborough, like, like this is your job. Like people aren't like naturally interested in this particular plant probably. So you have to make it interesting.